Today, I'm going to show you my A-team tools. Specifically, I'll be introducing my go-to ratchets. First up is this one from Koken's ZEAL brand. This is, without a doubt, my number one. It's a standard-sized ratchet with an overall length of 178 millimeters, and this one, the 3725Z, is the one I use the most. It's just a really convenient length, and its most distinctive feature is how light the back drag is. It's incredibly light. That light back drag is its signature feature. Personally, I believe that when it comes to back drag, the lighter, the better. And Koken is a manufacturer that really focuses on that. In the world of ratchets, I'd say this is probably the lightest you can get. So, why is lighter better in the first place? Well, when you're loosening a bolt, right? Towards the very end, as you're loosening it, the friction between the bolt and the threads decreases, and it starts to turn with very little force. At that point, if your ratchet has a heavy back drag, the bolt will just turn along with the ratchet handle. But if the back drag is light, the handle will ratchet back like it's supposed to. That's a factor, and when you're doing restoration or maintenance work, that can be a real source of frustration. That's why, for me, a ratchet with a lighter back drag is what I prefer. Another great thing about this ratchet is that it has a 72 tooth gear. Now, a 72 tooth gear is pretty much the standard these days, I think, but back when this came out, that was a high tooth count, and, well, given its size, it's not even 20 centimeters long. I generally only use it with sockets up to about a 14. I really don't use it for anything bigger than a 14 millimeter. For anything that requires more torque, I'll switch to a breaker bar or a larger ratchet to do the work. So yeah, about a 14 is the limit. So I use it a lot for general motorcycle maintenance, and for cars, I'll use it in the engine bay, on the interior, when changing a steering wheel, that kind of work. So that's pretty much most maintenance tasks. But with a ratchet this length, one area I didn't mention where it's not great is for suspension work, the undercarriage. When you're working on a car's suspension, this length is just too short. I doubt you could break loose most of those bolts with it. They're just too tight. Yeah, they're tight. That's when this one comes in handy. The Snap-on FHNF 100. Yep, this has what's called a swivel mechanism. It's a swivel ratchet. This one has an overall length of 318 millimeters. For a 3/8 drive ratchet, that's in the very long category. Because it has all this length, and on top of that, it has this swivel function that lets you freely adjust the angle. It's incredibly useful for suspension work. When I need to apply a lot of force, this is the one I reach for. Generally, ratchets over 300 millimeters long are usually half-inch drive. When that's the case, you have to go and get a whole different set of sockets, or switch ratchets, and that's just a hassle. So, I wanted a long 3/8 drive ratchet. The main options were this Snap-on and one from KTC. I actually got this one as a gift, so I have the Snap-on, but for a similar length, there's a much cheaper one from KTC, maybe around 7,000 yen. I personally recommend that one. The KTC long swivel has a smaller head than this one, and I think the back drag is probably lighter on that one too. The length is also 300 millimeters, so it's almost the same length as this. Just a little shorter. So for anyone buying a long swivel, I'd recommend KTC, personally. This one is just too expensive. It's about 24,000 yen, so it's just too expensive. I recommend KTC, and I was on the fence until the very end. I was thinking about getting the KTC one, but the fact that KTC's premium brand, Nepros, didn't have a swivel out, and also, personally, I didn't own any KTC tools. So if I got that swivel, I'd have to get matching sockets and all that, and my collector's habit might have gone wild. So I went with Snap-on. If you want a long swivel, I definitely think KTC is the better choice, in my opinion. Yep. Okay, next. Next up is this one. It's a 1/4 inch, again, from Koken's ZEAL brand, the 2726Z. 2726Z, yep. And this is a 1/4 inch, but it's now a 72 tooth. This one, I think it was early 2023. Koken's 1/4 inch ratchet models were all updated to 72 teeth, and I bought mine at that time. When I was buying it, I really debated whether to get the flex head version or not. I wondered if the non-flex version would be better, or if I should go with the flex, but this also costs around 8 or 9,000 yen, so I didn't want to make a mistake, and after thinking it over, I went with the flex. And for this size, going with the flex was absolutely the right decision. With the flex head, When you use it like this, it fits right into your hand. So, a 1/4 inch drive, you'd use it in deep parts of the engine bay, or for interior work, in those kinds of tight spaces. And when you do, having the flex head that fits in your hand and lets you go click, click, click is really great. I think a lot of people don't have many 1/4 inch tools. 3/8 is usually enough. But there are definitely times when the size of a 1/4 inch, its smallness, really comes in handy. The other day, with Hara-san's car, when we were taking off the fender, there was a nut between the door and the frame that you couldn't get to without a 1/4 inch drive. So I think it's a good idea to have a 1/4 inch ratchet in your collection. Anyway, as for this 1/4 inch one, it's been a recent favorite. My go-to combination is this extension bar. An extension bar, what do you call this again? This type that intentionally wobbles, and then a nut grip socket. This nut grip feature is really great. This is a bit of a side note, but a nut grip socket can hold a nut like this. See, there's a little nub in here. Can you see it? This holds the nut in place so it doesn't fall out. So with this 1/4 inch, and on top of that, this wobbly extension bar, when you put them together, you can get it just in the nick of time, even in places that are hard to reach. So I recommend this combination. Oh, but that's just a side note. I like these three, I use them the most. And just as a side note, I brought this one that's not my first string, but this GL series Shibuichi model also has a series with a 3/8 square shoved into the Shibuichi body. So it's a 272 6Z-38, but it's the same body but different. The price of this insert is, and the one I have is either a 272 6Z or a 272 5Z, but since it's not flex, it's a 272 5Z. Well, it's a 3/8, but I have one with 36 years. I was also undecided about this. I was really undecided about whether to use a 3/8 or a 4/8 insert. The 3/8 also has some great points. This square is in this body, so the spring here is really small. That's why it spins incredibly lightly. Compared to the 3/8 of this century, it spins incredibly lightly. So, I think this is a must-have Kuten feel for tool lovers. Well, this one is a 36 gear version, and they're also releasing a 72 gear version now. So I'm kind of hoping to get one. But even so, I don't think it'll make it into my first team. In the end, when you're using a high-value model, you want one with this high-value model. This thinness is really good. If you make it 3/8, that advantage disappears. If I were to buy it, I'd probably go for the long version of this. It's like the 3/8 with the Shibuichi body, right? If that's the case, it might replace this and be added to the lineup. Well, this isn't a first string item, so I'll leave it for now, and that's about it. Well, once you start getting picky about tools, it's hard to stop, but that ratchet is the one I use most often for maintenance. Even though I recommend buying that really good one, I honestly don't think you absolutely need to buy a Snap-on. Snap-on tools are simply too expensive for most people. That's why I've always recommended the Ratchets from Yukin, which are not only reasonably priced, but also of excellent quality. That's all for today's discussion about ratchets, which are truly a must-have tool for anyone who works with their hands. Next time, I'll introduce some sockets, open wrenches, and a few other essential must-have tools. That's all for today. Thank you very much.